Hello again and welcome to another episode of the Franchise Everything podcast, where we talk about everything and anything franchising. And today I'm joined by David Ciantar, who is the Group General Manager of Fabe. How you going, Dave?
Hey, Glenn. Nice to be here with you.
Thank you, mate. We did a panel and everything here yesterday at the NFC together.
We did.
Thank you for joining us on it. And I think, first of all, tell us what Fabe is. Let's start with that.
Fabe, F-A-B-E, that stands for Food and Beverage Enterprises. Essentially, Fabe is our parent company, and we've started with the successful cafe brand Piccolo Me. That started some 13 years back. Last year, we had another acquisition of Soul Bowl, which is our second brand, and we're in discussions at the moment acquiring a third brand, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. Yeah,
talk about it a bit loosely,
definitely so.
Because I know it's close, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is why I wanted to talk with you, because I've seen a lot of your activity on LinkedIn, and we know each other a bit from previous times and everything. But I reckon it's a dream of many franchise founders in particular to create a portfolio of brands. And I thought it would be a great podcast while you're here to have a chat about how do you start acquiring that? How do you even get to a position where you're in a position to acquire brands and deal with it operationally, logistically with your brand? So where did it begin with Soul Bowl, for example? And what is Soul Bowl, by the way?
Yeah, so look, Soul Bowl's more of our, whilst it's still a cafe offering, it still has a point of difference in comparison to Piccolo Me. And I think in the early stages, Glenn, I think it's got to start a little bit with your growth strategy. If acquisition is by choice or certainly an option in terms of growth strategy, it needs to be planned out, and there's lots of moving parts.
So it's not a random, there's an opportunity, let's snap it up.
Yeah, exactly. So look, even in terms of the Soul Bowl acquisition, there was discussions probably going on for 18 months, 2 years before it actually, came to fruition. So I think in an instance of, one just assuming that, acquisitions are going to happen, I do think there needs to be, somewhat key planning in terms of working towards why an acquisition is going to fit your brand.
Yeah, and how do you say that it's a cafe brand, but it's an acai-based cafe brand?
Yeah, it's got acai, smoothie bowls, porridges. Okay. So it does have a little bit of a healthy connotation, but certainly one that's also indulgent as well. So, but again, I think in definitive brands of certainly what we're looking at, there still has to be some clear delineation from one brand to another.
And what was I can imagine a franchise network. So Piccolo Me is very much that cafe brand. Yep. And it's very distinctive. It's that bright yellow and black there. So it's great branding. I love that branding. Yeah. So what was the feeling and feedback like from existing franchisees? Because I always wonder what existing franchisees think. Okay, you're adding this brand on. Is that going to dilute any of my support, or where's the attention going? So what did franchisees say?
Yeah, so that's a good point. We actually got on the front foot and we said, look, this is what we're doing. This is our plans. So before it went out there in the broader scope of, the PR world and, it was all over social media, our franchisees knew about the acquisition, why we did it. That's important. So it was a small brand. We could see the upside and certainly the growth. And look, we acquired it last August when there was just 3 stores. We've now got 7. So the growth has been certainly there. But our franchisees certainly knew about the intention and why we do it. And they know that we would look at other brands as well.
And that's crucial. There's nothing wrong with you pursuing your growth strategy and doing what you want to do. But I think you're perfectly correct there, is that getting on the front foot, making sure they're aware. I just think it's like, it's almost disrespectful not to let them know that this is what we're up to.
Exactly.
Brands some of the bigger brands, you hear there's an acquisition. Oh, really? Wow, now we know. So I think that's a great strategy. So, okay, integration. So how does integration? Is it previous founder? So it's almost a template I'm talking about here. So for other people thinking of themselves, is it best practice to go after a acquisition like that you bring the founder with you as part of the deal?
Yeah, that's and look, there's always lots of different options in terms of that. Lily, who's the founder of Soul Bowl, so she's still actively part of the business, and in fact also has one of the stores as a franchisee or / company store, but certainly still very actively involved in the business.
It's really engages, and that's great.
Definitely, and the good thing about having Lily as part of the business is, she created the recipes, she created a lot of the operational procedures, and look, we've we've since bolstered that as well. We know that to take the brand to the next level, Lily's going to need support and assistance. So we've brought in some operational personnel. We've also used our support departments that we've used under Fabe or Piccolo Me in terms of integrating. So, there's some good value in terms of using our current systems and processes and legal documentation. So not only that you've got to be careful using the word replicate, because, there's still some unique characteristics that we love and will own and will never change about Soul Bowl. So I think we've always got to be careful of the fact that we just don't take Piccolo Me documents, procedures, manuals, and then just change the logo to Soul Bowl.
Yeah, and they're almost like you're proving it like a cookie cutter type of thing.
Exactly right.
It's not a good feel to it, is it?
Exactly right. And Glenn, like, I'll use one example that's really prominent is that, Piccolo Me will have an ad fund and a royalty structure where Soul Bowl just has the one fee that's all encompassing. And, there's always going to be reasons and discussions with our directors and senior management, should we change that or should we look at it? But if it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And also look at the basis that there's still got to be some individuality about the brand and also some very, very clear strategy in terms of why we would be making the decision about the brand staying as is.
So is there thought of going in a totally different direction other than cafe? So like I know it's got a niched cafe difference to you. Was there thoughts of another direction, whether it be QSR dining or more of a fast food type of thing? Was there the discussions around that?
Yeah, definitely. And look, I think the parent company or Fabe, it stands for all things food and beverage. And yes, we would look at certainly QSR brands, smaller type brands that could potentially even operate out of mobile facilities as well. So it's funny because when a lot of people know that you're on the acquisition trail or you're certainly looking, for every, 50 that might come from over our desk, we will look at, probably 5 of them quite seriously. And look, there is a little bit of activity out there at the moment. So we will tread with caution. We're always excited about being presented an opportunity, but don't get overly excited in terms of it being a lay down misère that it's going to happen.
And I think it's interesting. So and I didn't know that, I wasn't quite aware of the numbers of Soul Bowl. So you bought it with 3.
Yep.
And now you're at 7. So that's a good start to start with straight away.
Yep.
But that, I suppose in my eyes, removes a lot of the challenges that would have been there if it was 20 or 25 or 30.
Yep.
Obviously purchase price and all that sort of stuff is different, but operationally that makes it a lot more challenging to integrate with many more franchise partners, wouldn't it? And that would change the ball game a bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, good point. And I think one of the clear strategies with our acquisition trail is certainly looking at something that would have 3 to 25 outlets. And we don't want to bite off more than we can chew as well. And as I said earlier, there's lots of moving parts. Like, integration of 3 can be just as difficult as, taking on a dozen or 20, 25. But I think once you get some processes fundamentally drawn down and certainly some key people assisting you, like accountants and our solicitors, that certainly helps in terms of understanding, the work ahead.
So people who are watching this who might have 1 store or 2 stores of something. So for you, a person in your group general manager role, and I'm sure the $1 million question is, what makes a concept pop? So not necessarily just to you only, but in your mind, the way you see it, what makes a concept pop? You think, that might be a bit interesting. Because if you get like 50 and 5 are the ones there, what makes those 5 different?
I think when you look at the brand, there's got to be some simulation in terms of why a brand is going to fit under the Fabe umbrella. For us, it's also about having a little bit of point of difference. Like, yes, we could look at, and we've looked at numerous cafe chains, for example, and smaller type cafe chains. But, if you've got the same menu as Piccolo Me, a similar coffee to Piccolo Me, a similar look to Piccolo Me,
why would you bother?
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Unless, of course, you were going to rebrand too.
Yeah, exactly. And look, we are looking at one of the acquisitions that we're very, very close to announcing is the fact that this particular acquisition was really part of our growth strategy, and it gave us a bit of a footprint into a new state. So for us, that ticks a lot of boxes in its own.
Sense.
Yeah. And I mean, like growing into another state, like we're presently in New South Wales and Victoria, and ACT, but to get into to states like Queensland, South Australia, WA, Tassie, acquisition is a really good scope for us to grow and actually do that accordingly, and potentially rebrand the sites as well.
So looking back, so how long have you had Solbol for now? Did you say about 12 months?
Since August last year.
So from then to now, what would you pick up and say, what are your key learnings from that? So what did you think at that time you didn't know this, and then now you know, then, we'd do it differently, or some insights from that?
Well, from that perspective with Solbol, the first 4 months we were looking at, we also did the monumental project of rebranding. So I'm not just talking about
Solbol.
Yeah, we rebrand it in terms of the logo, the look, feel, fit out.
Why was that? What was the
we just wanted to make it really a lot more contemporary, and we used a really, really good agency who's worked with some of the big guns in QSR, and we wanted to set it up so, particularly with the branding side, it wasn't something that we had to revisit in 2, 3, 4 years, and we believe now the look and feel of Solbol will certainly set us up for the next 5 to 7 years in terms of what we want to achieve with the look, feel, and also how we're perceived in the marketplace as well.
Yeah. So the positioning going forward. So because I'm interested in the aspect of, if you got Piccolo Me and you got Solbol, there are still quite different products apart from some overlap, obviously.
Yep.
Is there potential for co-branding, co-locations? How are you dealing with the leasing side of it with these two brands?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think there's got to be another level of dynamics with co-branding two brands. Firstly, space, of course. So with Piccolo Me and even Solbol in its own right, we can operate in very small kiosk type locations, but to co-brand, and we actually have got three sites that are co-branded.
Oh, you do? Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got Campbelltown in New South Wales, the Campbelltown Western Sydney University, Lonsdale Street in Victoria, and also in Lebanon. Our Debaya store is actually co-branded.
On international.
Yeah. So the good thing about it is we'll look at it for what it's worth, but we also want to make sure that we're doing the justice to both brands. And there's always, there's always one that may prevail a little bit more in the look and feel, but we want to make sure that we do a really good top-notch job in terms of the product offering and certainly what it stands for.
So with those 3 deals, or even in the Lebanon one, how have you done the agreements and everything for that? So that licensee or franchisee that going into that, are they taking 2 franchise agreements, or how are you handling it? Yeah,
so look, it is one franchise agreement, but certainly with a lot of mentions in terms of the other brands. We're pretty lucky that largely franchisor franchisee obligations in the franchise agreement are quite common and very similar.
Yep.
So where there's a bit of point of difference from one brand to another, we certainly make sure that those mentions are certainly added into the franchise agreement. And we obviously just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing in terms of disclosing the most important points about both brands, but making sure that we're inclusive with both brands as well.
So before we wrap up, we can't not, you said Lebanon, so we can't not touch on that, because that's a big one to throw in there. So what was the thinking behind Lebanon and going to there? So you've got the one store there, which is dual branded?
Yep. Yeah. So look, it's a really nice story how it's happened. I mean, Harry and the boys, Roy and Charlie, come from Lebanese origin. So I think it really hits home in the heart.
Homecoming time.
Yeah, exactly. Of, taking something that they've built when Harry came out here with nothing and really taking it back home. So there's certainly the emotional side of that.
I've
but also
seen on LinkedIn the pride. It just sort of oozes out. You can see
and it really
it.
is. And look, it's we're also now even talking about a second store. So it's also nice that yes, you've got a brand presence in your home country, but also that it's B, it's doing well. C, we're looking at another store, and D, that we're looking at what the future holds in terms of that as well
through the region.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think there's plenty more to talk about with Fabe as we go forward, Dave. But thanks for joining us on this, mate, and tell us a bit of a story there.
Excellent. Thanks for your time, Glenn.
That's it for another one of the Franchise Everything podcasts. I hope you like. Please share, subscribe, do all that sort of stuff, and we'll catch you in the next one very soon.